Have you ever jolted awake at 3 a.m., heart pounding for no obvious reason? Your mind races with worries about work, relationships, the future, an unnameable dread gnawing at your gut. You're not alone. Millions feel this creeping anxiety, this sense that something's off inside. In psychology, Carl Jung called this condition neurosis, a state of inner conflict. But where does it come from? Why do so many of us, even those with normal lives, feel divided against ourselves? In this video, we'll journey into the depths of the mind to unmask the roots of neurosis and anxiety, guided by Jung's groundbreaking insights. Prepare for an emotional and intellectual adventure. We're diving into your psyche, confronting the hidden shadows, and searching for answers that could transform your life. Imagine our modern life as a frantic stage play. By day, you put on a smile at work, post that perfect Instagram selfie, and tell everyone, "I'm fine, just busy." By night, when the lights go out, you feel a void or a tension under your skin that won't let you sleep. It's like living two lives, one for the world and one painfully private. Jung believed this split is at the core of neurosis, self-division, as he succinctly defined it. In other words, part of you is doing one thing while another part of you is pulling in a different direction. Sound familiar? It's as if your soul has a secret and it's trying to get your attention through anxiety and distress. So, where do these inner conflicts come from? Here's a clue. Jung famously said, "Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering." Think about that. A substitute for real suffering. It means that sometimes we unconsciously choose, not deliberately but through our psyche's strange logic, to divert or mask our pain rather than face it head-on. Instead of facing a hard truth, like admitting we hate our career path or that a relationship is toxic, we develop anxious symptoms, phobias, or depressive moods. It's like your mind saying, "Okay, I'll give you something to be upset about, so you don't have to confront the real issue." Harsh, right? But also oddly empowering. It implies that if we confront the legitimate suffering, the real problems of our lives, the neurotic symptoms might no longer be needed. Now, I know neurosis sounds like a scary clinical term. Don't worry, we're not talking about psychosis or going crazy. Neurosis, in Jung's view, can afflict even the normal folks. In fact, Jung noted that about a third of my cases are not suffering from any clinically definable neurosis, but from the senselessness and aimlessness of their lives. I should not object if this were called the general neurosis of our age. Let that sink in, the general neurosis of our age. Many of us aren't mentally ill by standard definitions, yet we feel empty, directionless, or constantly uneasy. Modern society, with all its comforts, still leaves a spiritual hollowness, a lack of meaning. This existential angst is so common that Jung saw it as the hallmark of modern humanity. Are we surprised? We live in an era of information overload, social comparison, and pressure to be perfect. It's fertile ground for anxiety. The hook, then, is this. What if your anxiety has a deeper meaning? What if your nervous symptoms, the panic, the fatigue, the obsessions, are messages from your inner self? Jung believed that our psyche is self-regulating and purposeful. The weird dreams, the inexplicable fears, the urge to cry for no reason. These might be clues, breadcrumbs from the unconscious mind. As Jung wrote, neurosis is intimately bound up with the problem of our time and really represents an unsuccessful attempt on the part of the individual to solve the general problem in his own person. In other words, your personal angst might be an attempted solution, gone awry, to the pressures and contradictions of modern life. It's your soul wrestling with how to find balance and meaning in a chaotic world. By the end of this video, you'll not only understand where neurosis and anxiety come from, according to Jung, but you'll also gain insight into how to heal that inner split. We're going to explore powerful Jungian concepts: the persona, your social mask; the shadow, the parts of you hidden in the dark; the ego and the self, the process of individuation, becoming whole; and the role of repression in fueling anxiety. Don't worry if those terms sound abstract now. We'll break them down with vivid examples. Yes, including that awkward thing you did on social media and what it says about you. This isn't dry academia. It's real talk about your inner life. I promise to keep it bold, relatable, and a little raw, because facing our psyche can be an emotional roller coaster. Ready to dive in? Let's peel back the layers. Before we jump to Act 2, consider this teaser. How can I be substantial if I do not cast a shadow? I must have a dark side also if I am to be whole, wrote Jung in Modern Man in Search of a Soul. It's a poetic way of saying that to be a complete human, we can't deny our imperfections or fears. In the next act, we'll venture into that shadowy side, the hidden source of much anxiety, and see how our attempts to appear okay might actually be making us not okay. This journey might hit close to home, but stick with it. By understanding the origin of your neurosis, you'll be taking the first step to healing it. Onward, into the depths of the unconscious we go. Act 2, the deep dive, Jungian foundations of neurosis and anxiety. Welcome to the underworld of your psyche. Don't worry, we have a flashlight. Act 2 is where we unravel Jung's core ideas about neurosis and anxiety, in plain language with real-life twists. Think of this as a guided tour through your mind's back alleys. First stop, the show we put on for others and the stuff we hide. Take a good look at the two masks above. On the right, a smiling mask filled with words like welcomed, included, accepted. This is the persona, your social face. It's the personality we curate for the world. The good child, the professional employee, the nice friend, or the filtered Instagram profile. We all have a persona. It's necessary. It's like a suit of clothes we wear to interact with society. But here's the catch. If we over-identify with this mask, if we believe we are only what we pretend to be, we get into trouble. Why? Because behind the smiling mask lurks the left image. The sad, dark mask covered in words like alone, lost, abandoned, forsaken. That's the shadow, all the feelings and traits we shove away out of sight. Jung introduced the concept of the persona and shadow to explain this inner split. The persona is Latin for mask, literally the masks actors wore in ancient plays. Your persona is the role you play. Maybe you act super confident at work while hiding crippling self-doubt. Maybe you're the caring friend who never gets angry, while deep inside you're furious at how people take advantage of you. Those angry feelings don't vanish. They collect in the shadow. The shadow is everything about ourselves that we deem unacceptable and therefore repress. It's our envy, shame, desires, fears, even positive qualities that we might have squelched to fit in. Don't be too ambitious, people won't like you. Jung said, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. In plain terms, the more you deny something in yourself, the stronger and darker it becomes in your unconscious. How does this relate to anxiety and neurosis? Imagine holding a beach ball underwater. The more you push it down, the more forcefully it pops up. Repression works the same way. When you repress your true feelings or instincts, shoving them into the shadow, they don't just disappear. They leak out as symptoms. Maybe you break out in panic whenever you have to speak up because you've suppressed your authentic voice for too long. Or you develop an inexplicable phobia, which is really a displaced fear of confronting someone in your life. Jung noted, the symptom is therefore an indirect expression of unrecognized desires which come into violent conflict with our moral convictions. Our neuroses are often symbolic. The psyche speaks in code. An anxiety attack might be bottled up anger. Chronic fatigue might be repressed. Creativity suffocated by an overly rigid life. It's wild and kind of amazing how the mind finds a way to express what the conscious self refuses to. Let's bring in ego versus unconscious here. Jung's model of the psyche has the ego, the I, your conscious identity, as just the tip of the iceberg. The unconscious, vast and deep, contains the shadow, but also much more. Memories, forgotten experiences, and Jung's famous archetypes, universal patterns. Anxiety often arises when the ego and the unconscious are at odds. Jung's theory of neurosis is built on the idea of a self-regulating psyche composed of tensions between opposites. If your conscious attitude, say, I must always be polite and sweet, contradicts an unconscious truth, maybe you have a lot of justifiable anger from past hurt, you get a tug of war. That inner tug of war is the neurosis. It's like two drivers fighting over the steering wheel of a car. No wonder the ride gets bumpy. Here's a concrete example. Social media use. Consciously, you craft a persona online that's upbeat, adventurous, #living my best life. Unconsciously, you might be struggling with loneliness and insecurity. The more you curate only the positive and ignore the negative, the more alienated you feel when you're alone at night, scrolling others' highlight reels. The persona has split off from the real self, and now the shadow feelings, unaddressed, flood you with anxiety. You think, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel so terrible? Well, because the image you project and the reality you feel have gotten too far apart. Jung wrote that modern man or woman often hears and does not hear. He sees yet is blind. He knows and is ignorant. Basically, we often know something is off but ignore it. We might know deep down, I'm in the wrong career, or this relationship is draining me. But we stay in denial because change is scary. That denial is costly. The unresolved tension turns inward, becoming neurotic distress. Another Jungian concept crucial to understanding anxiety is individuation. Individuation is the process of becoming individually whole, integrating those warring parts of yourself into a cohesive self. Think of it as forging a peace treaty between your ego and your shadow, your persona and your true feelings, your logical mind and your soulful intuitions. When individuation is blocked, neurosis results. Neurosis occurs when the individual, for some reason or another, is unable to take the next step in personal development. To paraphrase Jung's insight, it's like being stuck at a crossroads, afraid to grow. For example, a young man might need to step out of his parents' shadow and define his own path, but if he's too afraid, he might develop neurotic symptoms, maybe debilitating anxiety, that ironically force him to confront the issue, perhaps therapy, a breakdown that leads to a breakthrough, etc. Jung often saw neurosis as the psyche's cry for growth. In fact, he shockingly suggested that in some cases, a neurosis could be a positive thing, a painful prod toward finding one's true purpose. It's like your soul saying, I won't let you off easy. I'll make you so uncomfortable that you have to address your inner truth. Let's decode some key Jungian terms in everyday language, with analogies. Persona. Think of your social media profile or your resume persona. It's the polished mask. Useful, but not the whole story. If you identify with it completely, I am only what others approve of, you'll fear anything that contradicts it. Cue anxiety whenever your real self peeks out. Shadow. Like the closet where you stuff all the junk before guests come over. It holds all the aspects of you that you reject. The more you shove in, the more it spills out unexpectedly. Ever had an emotional outburst and thought, where did that come from? It was shadow material jumping out. Ego, the conscious you, the driver of the car, except sometimes the car has backseat drivers. Ego likes to think it's in control, but often it's swayed by unseen forces from the unconscious. Repression, the act of pushing thoughts or feelings out of awareness. Imagine hitting archive on emails you don't want to deal with. They're out of the inbox, but still there. Too many archived issues equals a looming email server crash. Hello, anxiety. Self. In Jung's view, the self is the whole psyche, like the entire circle of which the ego is just a slice. It's the integrated you, including unconscious aspects. Anxiety is often a signal that the self wants the ego to pay attention to something important for wholeness. A modern scenario to illustrate all this. Picture Sarah, a high-achieving professional. Her persona, competent, cheerful leader. Ego identity. I'm a strong, independent woman. I don't need help. But in her shadow, she has a lot of self-doubt, a need for affection, even anger at how she's treated at work. She represses those as weakness. Sarah starts having panic attacks before work. She's baffled. I love my job, I'm good at it. Why am I panicking? Her unconscious might be protesting her one-sided life. Perhaps she secretly hates her career but won't admit it. Or she's lonely and working 80-hour weeks to avoid dating vulnerability. The panic attacks force a timeout. In therapy, she might discover that her true self is starved for authenticity or human connection. The neurosis panic was a substitute for the real pain of admitting, I feel empty. Exactly what Jung meant by neurosis, substituting legitimate suffering. As soon as Sarah faces that legitimate suffering, perhaps grief over lost years or courage to make a change, the need for panic as a smokescreen diminishes. Jung emphasized that the unconscious isn't just personal, but also collective. Some of our anxieties are rooted in age-old human struggles, fear of death, need for meaning, and more. In The Undiscovered Self, Jung discusses how modern society's materialism leaves a spiritual void. He warned against the fear of looking inside. It is this fear of the unconscious psyche which not only impedes self-knowledge, but is the gravest obstacle to a wider understanding. Often the fear is so great that one dares not admit it even to oneself. Powerful, right? We're afraid to face our own souls. So instead, we distract ourselves, or we scapegoat others, project our shadows onto them. Jung would say, if you're consumed by anxiety, ask, what am I not confronting in myself? It could be as simple and hard as acknowledging, I feel insecure, or I need love, or I'm angry at my friend, or I'm terrified of failure. Naming the demon starts to tame it. One more concept. Jung distinguished types of people, laid out in psychological types, introverts versus extroverts, thinkers versus feelers, and so on. This matters for neurosis because a life that doesn't fit your type can stress you deeply. Imagine an artistic, free-spirit intuitive, feeling type forced into a rigid accounting job by family pressure. His essence is stifled. Neurosis might ensue as a rebellion of the inner true nature. Jung observed that a solution for neurosis must be individual. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases, he wrote. This means your path to balance won't look like anyone else's. You might need more solitude, someone else needs more connection. You might need creativity, another needs discipline. But generally, the cure involves restoring wholeness, giving space for both sides of your personality. If you've been overly nice persona, integrate some assertiveness from your shadow. If you've been a workaholic, integrate the neglected playful or spiritual side. To sum up Act 2, Jung sees neurosis and chronic anxiety not as random malfunctions of a broken brain, but as meaningful expressions of a psyche in conflict, a call to growth. Your anxiety has origin. Perhaps in childhood you learned to repress certain feelings, to please parents or survive a situation, and that pattern now creates friction between who you think you should be and who you really are. The origin of neurosis is in the split between a false self and true self, between conscious and unconscious. It comes from running away, from our legitimate suffering, from our true feelings, from necessary growth steps, until the inner tension builds up so much that it explodes in symptoms. The way out is not by suppressing the symptoms harder. That's like taking the battery out of a smoke alarm without putting out the fire, but by understanding what they signify. As Jung said, doubt about our civilization and its values is the contemporary neurosis. Our personal doubt and despair reflect a larger societal malaise. Healing one person helps heal the culture, and vice versa. All right, take a breath. That was deep stuff. If your mind is spinning a little, that's okay. We've uncovered some heavy truths. You have a shadow, everyone does. Your anxiety might be telling you something, and to overcome it, you may have to do the one thing you fear most. Face yourself honestly. But don't worry, Act 3 is all about hope and action. Now that we know where neurosis and anxiety come from, we can talk about what to do about it. How do we integrate our persona and shadow? How do we confront the legitimate suffering and find meaning so that anxiety is no longer necessary as a messenger? Let's move to the grand finale, the resolution, where you get practical insights to apply in your life starting today. Act 3, Resolution and Action, integrating Jung's insights into your life. Congratulations, you've made it through the shadows and depths, and you've emerged wiser. Now it's time to use that wisdom. Act 3 is all about applying Jung's ideas to heal neurosis and ease anxiety in your everyday life. We're going to turn theory into practice with that same bold energy. Think of this as your action plan for inner growth. Ready? Let's bring those shadows into the light and put the pieces of your psyche back together. First, a reassuring thought. Neurosis and anxiety are not life sentences. Jung believed and saw in his practice that people can and do get better by becoming more conscious. The unknown frightens us. Once known, it can be dealt with. It's like finally opening that weirdly humming box in the attic. Once you see what's inside, you may still have a task to handle, but at least you're not in mystery and dread. The key to Jungian healing is self-knowledge and self-acceptance. This is not trite, it's transformational. Remember that quote we teased earlier? We cannot change anything unless we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. What you fight in yourself fights back harder. What you accept, you can then work with. So step 1, accept your feelings, accept your flaws. If you're anxious, acknowledge, I am anxious, and there's a reason for it. If you've been depressed, allow yourself to say, something in me is deeply unhappy, and it deserves my compassion, not my scorn. This attitude of acceptance is like turning on a light in a dark room. The monsters shrink a bit. Now, shining that light might reveal some uncomfortable truths. Maybe you realize you hate your job, or you're still hurt by an old breakup, or you have a rage that you've never expressed since childhood. The content of your shadow might be tough, but Jung reminds us that facing it is the hero's journey of our life. Individuation, becoming whole, often means confronting the very things we've avoided. Perhaps you need to have an honest conversation with someone, or set boundaries, or pursue a passion you've buried. As Jung said, man needs difficulties, they are necessary for health. Yes, the guy basically said challenges make us healthier in the long run, because they force us to grow. So consider what legitimate suffering you've been dodging. Is it the pain of ending a bad relationship? The effort of changing careers or going back to school? The courage to be authentic about who you are, with family, with society? Identify one real issue behind your anxiety that you can address. This is scary, I know, but it's also liberating. Often the dread of doing the thing is worse than actually doing it. Let's get practical with a few actionable steps inspired by Jung's approach. Keep a journal, dialogue with your unconscious. Jung often had patients write down dreams, fantasies, or dialogues between different parts of themselves. Start a journal where you freely express your worries and wild thoughts without judgment. Treat it like a safe container for shadow material. Sometimes you can even write as if you are talking to your anxiety or sadness and let it answer back. Yes, like two voices. This is a form of what Jung called active imagination, a way to give the unconscious a voice. You might be surprised what emerges. It could be the beginning of understanding what your neurosis wants you to know. Examine your persona. Ask yourself, what image of myself do I project to others? What am I pretending to be coping with when maybe I'm not? Make a list of qualities you show the world versus what you feel privately. Where the gap is large, that's where work is needed. For instance, if you act ultra-confident but feel like an imposter, it's okay to admit vulnerability to someone you trust. Start lowering the mask just a little. You'll find it a relief, and it gives your true self some breathing room. Remember, a persona isn't bad, it's like clothes, but you shouldn't confuse it for your skin. Give yourself permission to be authentic in small doses, and see how much anxiety eases when you're not constantly upholding an act. Own your shadow in safe ways. Owning your shadow means acknowledging those bad thoughts or feelings and finding a healthy expression. Are you secretly angry? Great. Admit it on paper, punch a pillow, take a kickboxing class, or express assertively to the person, if appropriate. Are you envious? Instead of shaming yourself, examine what that envy tells you about what you deeply desire. Are you feeling inadequate? Instead of hiding it, maybe share that feeling with a close friend. You'll often find they have the same insecurity, and both of you feel less alone. Jung said that when the shadow is neglected, it wreaks havoc. When it's recognized, it can become a source of creativity and strength. Your dark side has energy. Think of it as fire. Uncontrolled, it burns. Controlled, it can fuel your engines. For example, channel pent-up anger into fighting injustices or pushing for change, rather than letting it turn into self-loathing or anxiety. Seek meaning. One of Jung's big themes is that a life with meaning can overcome even great suffering, whereas meaninglessness is a breeding ground for neurosis. He observed that many midlife crises, classic neuroses, were essentially spiritual problems, a loss of meaning or value. Ask yourself, what truly matters to me? When do I feel most alive or at peace? It could be in nature, in art, in helping others, in faith or philosophy. Engage with those things. This isn't a quick fix, but gradually, building a life around genuine values and passions fills the inner void that anxiety often rushes into. Even your neurosis can guide you here. If you're anxious at work but calm while painting on weekends, hint, hint, your soul might be saying create more. If social situations give you panic but you find meaning in writing or solo activities, honor your introverted self and don't force extroversion. Jung would nod approvingly. He wrote, "The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it." Find your meaning, however small, and plant your flag there. Therapy and community. Sometimes we can't do it alone, and that's okay. Jungian therapy or other psychotherapies can provide a supportive space to explore your unconscious patterns with a trained guide. Even if you don't go the therapy route, having an honest friend or support group can work wonders. Talking about your anxieties takes some of their power away. You realize you're not weird or broken. You're human. As the saying goes, shame dies on exposure. What you keep inside festers, what you share begins to heal. Community rituals or religious and spiritual practices can also help reconnect you to something larger than yourself, which alleviates the existential isolation a lot of neurotic folks feel. Jung wasn't shy to discuss religion and myth. He felt connecting to archetypal stories or a higher power can orient the psyche and reduce neurosis. In The Undiscovered Self, he argued that individuals must find an inner spiritual anchor to not be swept away by mass culture and anxiety. Creative expression. Do something creative with your neurosis. Write a poem about your anxiety, paint your mood, compose a melody for your melancholy. Creativity gives a constructive outlet to the unconscious. It's not about making good art. It's about externalizing the inner turmoil. Jung famously used mandala drawing, circular symbolic art, to center himself in patience. When you create, you're in dialogue with the unconscious in a tangible way. It often brings insight, or at least relief. Next time you're overwhelmed, try scribbling or journaling spontaneously. You might discover the image or words that come out are exactly what's been bothering you, now made visible. Finally, let's recall a beautiful promise hidden in Jung's perspective. Your anxiety might contain a gift. Jung wrote that hidden in the neurosis is a bit of still undeveloped personality, a precious fragment of the psyche. That means the very symptoms that plague you could be pointing to a part of you that needs to be born or integrated. Perhaps your incessant worry hides a natural planner and caretaker who, once acknowledged, can become your strength, instead of an overbearing mother hen in your head, or your depressive stagnation hides a deep thinker or artist in gestation. When healed, the energy that went into neurosis is freed up for life. The nervous person, when whole, might become remarkably empathetic and insightful because they've been to hell and back and know the terrain of the soul. In closing, remember that becoming whole is a lifelong journey, not a one-time fix. Be patient with yourself. Jung's approach is not about eliminating all anxiety. Some anxiety is part of being alive, but reducing the unnecessary neurotic anxiety that comes from self-division. As you integrate the disowned parts of yourself, you'll feel more internally aligned, and those inner civil wars will abate. Instead of your energy sapping away into symptoms, it'll be available for living, loving, creating. Let me leave you with a final thought from Jung's works that always gives me chills, the good kind. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. Your past shaped you, your unconscious nudges you, but ultimately, you have the freedom to become more conscious and write the next chapters of your story. Where neurosis and anxiety come from is within you, but that's exactly why within you is also the power to heal them. Embrace your inner contradictions, face your fears with compassion, and dare to be whole. Your anxiety has been a teacher, a rough one granted. Thank it, learn from it, and as you grow, watch it slowly dissolve like a nightmare after sunrise. Jung believed in the transformative capacity of the human psyche, from fragmentation to unity, you are capable of that transformation. The journey inward is the hero's journey of our time, and every step you take not only eases your own suffering, but lights a torch for others in this general neurosis of our age. It's been an emotional, expressive ride, exactly as it should be when talking about matters of the soul. I hope you feel inspired and armed with insight. Now, take these ideas and run with them in your own life. Start by doing one brave thing. Maybe tonight, have that honest chat with yourself in your journal, or tell a friend what you're really feeling. Small step by step, shine light into your dark corners. As you do, you'll find that what once terrified you becomes an opportunity for rebirth. In Jung's words, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. You got this. Here's to your individuation journey, to turning anxiety into awareness, neurosis into new life. Go forth and be whole.